Um, Hello, everyone. I would like to call the December 9, 2022 monthly meeting of the Niskayuna Complete Streets Committee to order and start off with a roll call of members. Tess Healy. Tess Healy is here. Hi, Tess. How are you? Paulina Manzo is here. Hi, Paulina. It's nice to see you. Carla Dougal is here. Hi, Carla. How are you today? I'm here. Dart Strayer. Any message from Dart or?
I talked to Dart. He actually came in this morning. He is not able to come to this meeting, and because he's so involved in the comprehensive plan, he's probably going to have to step down from the Complete Streets at least for next year.
Okay. Jim Levy. Jim Levy is here. Hello, Jim. Elise Corbin, I'm hopeful will join us in progress. Andrew Millspaw. Andrew, not yet, I guess, but I hope he'll be along. And Catherine is here.
No, Andrew has a work conflict this afternoon. Sorry, I was muted.
Oh, okay, sorry. So Andrew Millspaw is excused for the meeting. He's got a work conflict. And Catherine, hello to you. Thank you for joining us today. Okay. I hope people got a chance to take a quick look at the meetings for our October 28 meeting. And I don't know if anyone has any additional comment or any thoughts on those minutes. If not, I'd like to move acceptance of the minutes for October 28, 2022.
There was one thing that was wrong in there.
Okay.
Under Winnie Road easement, it had Miss Dougal, and it should have been Mr. Chapman. If you interchange Mr. Chapman,
Okay.
Miss Dougal in that paragraph, yeah.
Let's see.
Hold on. Yeah.
The lines, I don't have it. Wait a second. It'd take me a minute to pull it up, but it's under the Winnie Road
51,
easement.
Line 51.
Thank you.
I think it's line 51, Laura.
Okay. Thanks,
Okay.
guys.
Thank you, Laura. Okay, with that amendment, any other thoughts on the minutes? If not, looking for a second to accept the minutes of October 28 as amended by Carla Dougal. Anyone? Jim Levy seconds. All in favor of accepting the minutes for October 28 by a show of hands? Okay, thank you. The next item is a pedestrian connections to the school campus, and Meg Tully, the president of the school board, did ask Complete Streets for a meeting. They have asked Turner Construction to prepare a set of plans for, I think, 6 of the 8 school campuses. And they did share those, and we went over them quickly at our last meeting. And so Laura Robertson and Andrew Millspaw and Jim Levy and I did sit down with them on November the 30th, and we kind of walked through their plans and gave comments. And I don't know, I guess I'd just start by asking Jim Levy and Laura if they had any thoughts about the discussion on November 30th. And
I'm feeling more optimistic about things being able to get done than I think I have in the past. So I'll put that out there. Still some work to do, but I thought it was a good meeting.
Yeah, I really wanted to thank you for pushing that and putting that together, Bill. I thought that was the best meeting we had so far. And I thought it was helpful because it seemed like that, you know, they're recognizing what we're doing and really actually do want to put a shovel in the ground on some of their projects, especially when they connect into what we're doing. So I was very encouraged by that meeting.
Yeah, I mean, we actually got into a couple details of, you know, things, why they may be able to do or not do what they can, whereas before it just seemed like more general knows, for lack of a better term. So I was glad to have an actual conversation about the details of why they were thinking, kind of what they were thinking, and what they think they kind of can do and why. So that's good. It was topics from, from insurance to maintenance and ownership and things like that. So it was good.
I
I
apologize.
do think,
I apologize for sending my comments so late. I didn't know when the meeting was.
well, that was on me because I didn't send it out to the membership. Or maybe I did. I don't know. They asked for a meeting and then we settled on November 30. But one of the things that I mentioned to Laura earlier was that I think that we should follow up with as Laura suggested, a thank you to the school district for agreeing to meet with us, and then summarizing some of our specific comments for each school campus in terms of what Turner's proposed and why we think either our original proposal made sense or if they decide to go forward with theirs. And I did look at your comments, and certainly one of the things they propose concrete sidewalks in a lot of places where we've done recommended a 10-foot asphalt pathway. So we might want to look at that. And we did learn from the meeting that the sidewalk that they talked about going from Rosendale Elementary over to River Road Park, their design was wrong. They agreed to that at the meeting, that they were talking a sidewalk, but it kind of went over kind of where we had the asphalt side path. But I think based on your comments and others, we need to do some thinking of our own. You make good points, Carla, who sent some comments, that having a sidewalk on the west side of the entrance to Rosendale Elementary next to the school makes sense because students coming west on Rosendale Road would already be on the west side. They wouldn't have to cross over the entranceway to Rosendale with the buses and the cars, and they would connect to the sidewalk system already in front of Rosendale. There still is the kind of, how do we get students that either come in on Rosendale or come from River Road Park, how do they access Iroquois Middle School, either biking or walking? And so that's something we still need to see a pathway there. And in looking at their plan, I actually didn't see that. There's a current asphalt path between Rosendale and Iroquois. Although actually, I think maybe they do. They do say they are going to extend around Iroquois Middle School the path that goes around to the entrance where they want students to come in, and make either a concrete or asphalt path that way, and then I think upgrade the path that they have there now. So I think that was good.
Why did they change the connection between the park? Like I think in the Complete Streets comments, you had marked it up so that it came through sort of, if you look at the plan, it's in the upper right corner where there's like more of a direct link, and they put it coming in the woods.
Yeah, they admitted that was a mistake at the meeting.
Okay.
And I guess whoever did it, that really wasn't where they wanted it to go.
Okay.
So they're more back over to where our path was, not cutting across the soccer field behind Rosendale Elementary. It's over closer to the trees and that sort of thing. And but we probably would need to see a plan of some sort to try to work that out, which is why I actually think it would make sense for us to follow with some comments reacting to what they had. And also your point, caller, that the asphalt sidewalk or the asphalt paths, if they're willing to look at them, one, they're cheaper, two, they're 10 feet wide, so they're ADA compliant. Now, some people might say, oh, if the school district is willing to do concrete sidewalks, then maybe we don't want to resist that because that's more permanent. And we could, I suppose, ask in some cases if we thought the sidewalk would serve both bikers and pedestrians, if they insist on a sidewalk, to see would they consider 6 feet or something like that. So it would be a little bit wider. But I guess, Andrew, do you, we're talking about the meeting with the school district. Do you have any comments on that meeting or any thoughts that were takeaways that you had on the meeting with the school district board members?
No, I thought it was a good meeting. I guess the takeaway is that they're very liability conscious. So, making sure, we keep that in mind that when we have ideas or concepts that are on the school property.
Well, like Jim said at the beginning, it was encouraging that they had asked Turner Construction to draw up some plans for pedestrian and bike safety at the campuses. That's a positive note. And I'm hopeful that means that the school board has been hearing our messages. And actually, Jim Levy had mentioned that one of the school board members asked him about the crosswalk at Regent and Knott Street, but it does show they kind of have heard our request, and when they meet with the Turner Construction and the architects, that they do have complete streets as one of the items on their agenda to talk about things. So I think it is good to talk to them. I don't know. I don't think any of us know what's the plan for funding, whether their message will be, okay, we'll draw up these plans and then we'll ask the people of the town to vote on another bond issue to approve whatever money is required to make these safe bike and pedestrian connections.
That wasn't the impression I got from them, Bill. Like, my impression on the funding was a couple of the little things that were tying directly into a town plan. They were going to try and fund potentially as the town was doing them. And then, look for funding for the other things also to connect in as they were being built. I don't think that I heard that they were proposing any type of new bond for these improvements.
Okay. Maybe I saw that.
I was gone for the second half of the meeting. Like, if that came up when I was gone, that's possible.
I might have put that idea in your head, Bill, because I think I may have emailed you about some thoughts like that. That sounds like a comment from me.
Okay. Well, anyway, I guess we should just be encouraged that we've gotten the attention of the school board. They are want to take this seriously. And I think kind of part of our message is just the obesity crisis, the climate change that, and I also think the main point, if the school board is going to get behind encouraging walking and biking to school, that if you don't have the safe infrastructure in place, then both the school board and the school district and this Complete Streets Committee are asking parents to maybe put their kids at risk by taking unsafe ways to get to the school. And nobody wants that. So we've got to make some steps to make sure that there's a safe access way to get to each school campus, and that's in place before we start encouraging kids to walk or bike to school. And so I think they have gotten that message, and I'm just encouraged they're willing to work with us. And we did get to meet the new school superintendent, who seemed like a very professional, reasonable gentleman. And he said they would get back to us with a memo as well too. And so I think we should summarize our thoughts, give it back to him, and do that. So I'd be happy to round up any comments that people have, put those together, and send it back to the school district. So anyway, any further comments from anyone on the school district? Okay. That reminds me that I did want to say that Paulina has sent us a note saying that she is going to step down next year as a member of Complete Streets Committee, and she's been in the trenches trying to help us get many things done. Certainly a lot of work on brochures, safety brochures, things we submitted to Metroplex to make the hike and bike path safer, and some ideas on pamphlets and signage on the Mohawk Hudson bike path for people to use it. Basically, short messages on 5 or 6 things that users should do and use. She's also been an advocate on the crosswalk at Regent and Knott Street. A lot of folks from the high school go across there to get to the high school, and kids using the middle school to get to Van Antwerp, across there. And then certainly on her advocacy, she's appeared before the school board several times to speak, and been at our earlier meetings with school board members on safe pedestrian access to the schools, and also was part of our effort on the Chicane's plan. So I do want to say thank you to Paulina for her work on Complete Streets Committee, and how important her effort has been so far in helping us move along. And I know I've tried to encourage people, and looking at the co-op block being one example where it's taken 5 years just to get it done, and now it is done. But it's almost like you have to have a 20-year perspective on the town and see. It just sometimes it takes time to get the school board on board, get Metroplex on board, get the county on board, get funding for projects, get them designed, built, and then but some of them are happening, and so we've got to be positive about that. And so I think some of the ideas that Paulina shared with us are actually going to bear fruit and show up in concrete around the town. And so anyway, thank you, Paulina, very much for your work on Complete Streets. So okay. Let's move on to Winnie Road. Is there any news there, Laura? I mean, anyone from the town contacted the guy that owns that strip?
Not yet, although the attorney and actually the engineering department, we talked about this at the Economic Development Committee meeting last week, and because there already is an existing utility easement and the engineer has to do a change to a different easement, it's slow, like you just said. I wanted to echo everything you said about Paulina. She's amazing. But they are looking into change what it would take to change the easement over. So, and we did discuss it at a town board level at the last week. So we're still working on it.
So the steps are, are we quite certain that the gentleman that we believe owns the property does actually own the property where the easement is?
Yes.
Mr. Bernard Martinez?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So no one from the town, either the attorney or the supervisor or you, have given him a call?
No. Still working on what it would take to convert that easement.
Okay. One, I've had a nasty chest cold for a week, so I'm going to be doing some hacking away here. Fortunately, I'm a long way away from everybody, but I did speak to Mr. Martinez's son, and asked if his father was still a possibility to consider an easement, and he said that he thought that he was, but we obviously need to speak with him. So, but Audrey she still calls me every couple of weeks to inquire about progress. So she's very, very interested in that connection being made. And again, I think not only for the folks on Winnie Road, but when Carla and I were there, that even if people on Mohawk and other neighborhoods have to go on the sidewalk on Route 7 for a little while, if they could take Winnie Road to get back to that connection, then they can get access to the Mohawk Hudson bike path in a safe way by using the new Flower Hill connection. And I think that would be great. So we'd be taking a step to turn on a bunch more neighborhoods to be able to get to the Mohawk Hudson bike path. So, okay. Carla, anything else you want to add on Winnie Road or?
Yeah, I don't have anything right now. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else on Winnie Road before we move on? Okay. Let's move to planning board referrals. Laura has put on a Mohawk Golf Club. Looks like it's a housing development for our discussion. And so I'll let her introduce that if she's willing.
Oops. Yes. So, oops, wrong screen. Sorry. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. So this is, I think, the first time you guys are seeing this one. It's been to the planning board a couple times, and don't really have a good overview map, but essentially this is Ruffner Road, and Rosendale's on this side. It starts to get close to the connections with Row Road and Fox Hill and Windsor and stuff in the other direction. Very close to the intersection of Mountain View Ave. So there's this big chunk of forest on the Mohawk Golf Club right now, and they are proposing to turn that into an average density development Couple of unique things about this one is that they would be removing a single family home to be putting in the road here. And it is really, really, really close to a complete streets connection that we've been advocating for just about a gazillion times. So it's just on this map. Can you see my cursor when I move it? Can you see my cursor over here? No.
Yes.
You can? Okay. Where it says the 60-foot right of way, this little tiny bit of asphalt is actually the end of Country Club Estates, Country Club South. I'm not sure which one it is, but this is the last piece of all of those roads that occur in Country Club Estates. And so we've been trying to get a complete streets connection along between the golf course and the single family home that would come into this town right of way and connect into Ruffner Road. And that would allow anybody in that neighborhood to get more safely into the Ruffner Road neighborhood, which I think eventually gets you over to where you can access, the bike trails on the River Road Park and even down into Rosendale Elementary School and Iroquois, I believe. So that's really critical for kind of keeping alternative ways besides Rosendale Road for a lot of homes to get to schools and parks and things like that. And other things that we've heard as we were looking at it is that people feel there's a significant amount of traffic on Ruffner Road, and there's also a stop sign on Ruffner Road right here that is not always stopped at. And I didn't see Ben on the call, but
That intersection right there is Ruffner and what is it?
Mountain View, but they're even willing to consider looking at doing a little mini roundabout.
They would install it. It's a town road, right? But they would install it.
They're
If
looking at, yeah, because the stop sign isn't regularly stopped at. If a good
Right.
way to do a traffic calming thing there would be to do a mini roundabout. They said they would look at it. I
Does-
think. Oh, no, he is on here. Okay, good. So that's kind of like an overview of where the complete streets connection could go and some of the traffic calming things that we might be able to think about. I don't know if it's necessarily complete streets, but their emergency access that they're proposing is kind of along this golf course and golf cart path and over to Row Road. Some of the things the planning board have talked about is like that this is a little isolating. So is there places where they can like walk on the neighborhood, but the general consensus is that they would come out to Ruffner Road and walk in the neighborhood the way that most people who live on Ruffner Road do. I think this is just a black and white version of it, but do you guys have any initial thoughts, comments, things that we want to make sure come from Complete Streets? It's very preliminary, but I feel like a lot of Complete Streets elements potentially here.
I don't totally understand the red markup, and that's a connection to the Country Club Drive, but is that just like a right of way you said? Or
Yeah, sorry. You can pay attention, but the red markups were potential other accesses into the subdivision that they made for planning board.
Okay.
The point of this is I feel like it's good to see it on the aerial, and this one is more zoomed out. That on the left red markup, there's a town right of way there, and you could potentially connect the street to the town right of way, a complete streets connection.
Okay.
The one to make the connection, is that only potentially going to happen right now?
So, they have been resistant to it for a while because they were concerned that you would have to fence it or do some way that it wasn't inviting people to walk on the private golf course. But the Conservation Advisory Council, except DART, can't do complete streets next year, but has a lot of cross complete streets thoughts and pushed pretty hard on the developer that if they're going to be adding traffic and homes in this area that they had to look at connectivity. So they did get them to agree to see if they could engineer the connection at the last meeting. Still very preliminary, but they are going to see if they can fit it and how they would fit it, and if they could fit it put a chain link fence on it so that people couldn't wander into the golf course. Because over here, where Country Club Estate is actually, there's already a chain link fence that goes like right along here, right along the Country Club North, I think is what it is. There's a chain link fence that goes all the way to there, and then it becomes private property of single family homes. So they'd have to move the chain link fence a little and figure out a way to get people from there to here.
Mhm. If they put that on in the left, would they not have the road in the middle, or on the left would just be for pedestrians?
Yeah, I'm sorry about the red lines. And it's a possibility that a road may go there, but they're not proposing this road, this red road. They're
Okay.
not proposing it. They don't want to do that road. They're proposing these gray roads over here. But
Do they already own the house that would be destroyed for the road to go in the middle? Do they own that property?
they do. That's
Oh.
over here by the gray road.
Right.
Yeah. Hmm.
Is there a way that, I think they absolutely should be required to put in a trail on the left? I mean, is there, a way to mandate that?
The planning board can mandate it.
Hmm.
So Laura, I have two questions. One, I don't think they're going to want to do the red road because then they'd have to realign their, I guess it's probably green there from the looks of it, not a T.
It is. They're 11.
They're
Yeah.
probably not going to want to have to redo all that. The chain link fence there isn't desirable, but if that's what they want to do, I'd prefer to see something not quite so chain link anyway.
But there, like Laura was saying, there's already a chain link fence there, Jim.
Yeah, I know.
Actually, I go in the golf course sometimes, and like it's interesting how parts of it are chain link and parts of it are just nothing.
Yeah, and I'm sure they'd put some pushes in there, but that's not really my big question. I think the connection over there, if it doesn't happen with this, it's probably never going to happen. I mean, this is the chance for the town to get
Mhm.
that connection to, I think it's East Country Club.
North.
But then, whichever road it is. But then I guess my other question comes to the other side of the development. The red lines aside, assuming that they develop it with this double cul-de-sac, they actually do still show what they're calling an access path that goes out to the golf course, but there's going to be a sign at the edge of the property that says Mohawk Golf Club members only.
Right here.
Yeah, and so it was kind of weird to me because it connects to a cart path. So I don't know if they're proposing that members are going to live here and be able to take this out to the cart path to the 13th green, which seems like a weird place to start. But it also seems like if there's an issue of, cars kind of blowing through the intersection on Ruffner, and we can get the connection over to Country Club, that it might be an off Ruffner way for people to walk, from Country Club through this development and then kind of down to get to the other side. Although I know the path over there doesn't technically come through there, although it does say there's show a cart path coming through, maybe almost all the way to Ruffner. I'm not sure, but it was just kind of weird to me that they're proposing an access path extension for members only to the 13th green, I guess. I don't know.
That is what they're proposing. When they originally were doing this, they were saying that it would be mandatory to have a membership to the golf club if you were to buy one of these.
Okay.
But then they backed off on that a little bit, so it would be a choice. And because they're a private golf club, I guess they don't really welcome the public onto their. It's not a public golf course.
Right.
But-
No, I totally get that. Yeah, I understand that. It just seemed kind of odd to me. I mean, it would be a nice connection. I do get there a public course, or a private country club. But it just seems kind of odd. You drive out. But anyway,
Yeah, so I don't know that golf club that well, but I suppose if you put their golf club connection closer to like the 12th tee, at least they would get on a. Yeah, because I guess they would just have to drive down I don't know. How do you get? I see what you're saying. Like you're coming out way over here, and it looks like the golf is going in the complete opposite direction of the clubhouse.
I'm not a golfer, but I don't see people starting on the 13th tee. I don't know. But
No,
maybe-
they wouldn't. They would have to go to the beginning. But I wonder if you just drive yourself along the screen and then you pick up
Yeah.
the golf club thing up here.
So if just saying, if there was a connection that could go from East Country Club into here and then even down and over to Ruffner, that would be nice. I mean, if it came out along the driveway, that's still a connection, or it comes over to Ruffner. Either way, anything that connects up to East Country Club, like you say, since that's been a priority, I think is something to definitely.
On this plan, where would that happen? I mean, the people that are in East Country Club and South Country Club, Highland, are sort of
actually-
imprisoned. So on this, what's the planning board looking at? If pedestrians and bikers want to get from that neighborhood to Ruffner Road or Row Road, how would they do it on this plan?
Yeah, so it was the CAC, actually. The planning board hasn't mandated it yet, but the
Okay.
CAC was trying to. I'm gonna bring up a different screen. Hold on. Oops. Maybe.
I mean, that red thing is not there as a street, but to Tessa's point, could that be if you're going across a town easement, could that be a hike and bike path that goes there that connects to Ruffner Road that doesn't necessarily go through this housing development and just is just a connector that gets you to Ruffner Road?
Yeah, that's what we had talked about years ago, I think, Bill. I think
Yeah.
there is something over there we could connect to.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, is that what the Conservation Advisory Council is requesting
Yeah.
the planning board do?
Yeah, so Jim was totally right. It's East Country Club. I don't know why. North is over on the west and east is on the north. I didn't make these road names.
Lucky guess, that's all.
No, it wasn't. So yeah, they're talking like right near like
Yeah, it looks like, yeah, right there. Yeah.
Now that's a town, is that a town easement right there? Is that like a water sewer easement or?
No, it's an old platted right of way. So you 100% could put a new trail there.
Yeah,
Well-
weren't we talking about the town doing something years ago? Don't they have something in there, Laura? Some
Yeah,
access?
oh yeah,
or-
it's in our complete
else?
streets map. Like we have it. Like we can definitely fight for it. And I think we should make a very strong recommendation that that happens. You're saying it might make more sense to bring like a prong off of this and go over to these guys, right? So they could get in here.
In theory, I think in reality, it might be it's a heavier lift. And, you know, if the golf cart path is, you know, it is what it is. I was just saying it'd be nice to have it connect in so the neighborhood can go both ways without having to go out to Ruffner. But at the very least, getting that connection you're showing there in the purple line, I think is
Yeah.
vital. We've been talking about it for a long time.
Because this one would be critical for, I mean, I don't even, there's so many houses here. Like all of these guys could then, instead of going down to Rosendale and then, you know, up some of these hills, they could just go to the end of their neighborhood on a multi-use path over to Ruffner. You know, I think like there's a way to get over here somehow to,
The
I
kids would
don't
know the
know
way
these
to
roads as well.
the kids would know the way to get over to the park and get over to, you know, Iroquois and middle school and all that stuff too. If they make that connection, it potentially shortens the path without them having to go down.
Yeah,
main-
because they're
main
never going
roads.
to stay on. Yeah, I think they have to go up to, so they go up to Linwood and then,
It's a little bit of a hike, but
still.
it would shorten that connection and connect the neighborhoods, which would be great.
I still don't even really know how that works, but it's definitely better.
Would the town have to do that easement and that path, Laura, or would the developer of this project be involved in doing that, or is that separate? We'd have to do it.
I would say we would recommend that is if the planning board is, you know, willing to pursue the average density, or the town board really actually willing to pursue an average density in that development, that it be required that the developer make that connection.
Okay.
Because anytime it's town funding, it's going to take much longer. If the developer is required to do it in order to build his homes, it's going to get done. It's going to get done.
Do we need to write a letter to the town board, or what's the best way to communicate to them?
Oh no, I think if you want to today, that can be your first recommendation. We'll start putting it in the planning board agenda statement. A lot of times the planning board adopts all your recommendations, and if they do that, it would automatically go as a recommendation to the town board. And if it didn't,
Okay.
then you could send a separate recommendation to the town board.
Oh, that's great.
I absolutely think we should do that. I would even say as a secondary thought consideration, they can think about it going to the new development, that connecting over to the new development. But
Yeah, I'll write that down.
I agree.
in my opinion, that would be secondary, but I think it'd be crazy to at least not consider it and see how far you can push it.
Yeah, because it would be nice for them to get into the country club neighborhood too.
It'd probably be faster to go through the country club neighborhood and then over to the beginning of the golf club.
Now,
And it keeps those new residents off Ruffner, which we've heard already has, you know, a decent amount of traffic and everything else.
Mhm,
now,
exactly.
Jim, did you have a recommendation at the other end of this housing development, or is this the only one? Complete Streets is concerned about right here, just this one, or?
Well, the purple line, I think, is priority one. I thought that this should connect into where there's the tree shown up here, which is where the development's going to go as another consideration.
Yeah, like
But
this
the
way.
other side of it that's just off Laura's screen to the top of the screen there, they have an existing cart path that they're going to connect in. I just didn't understand kind of what they were doing.
That's at
But I
Hilltop.
was saying that it could come back out, I think, to Ruffner because they have an existing cart path that comes out to Ruffner by whatever road that is right there. At least look
Yeah, because I think this is a sledding hill. Yeah, I think you could get to Ruffner this way if you wanted to.
So I know it's an existing
No.
cart path and I know it's a private golf course and those certainly bring in, other issues. And I mean, maybe that's not the top priority. I think the country club priority is number one, but you could see a nice kind of line coming from country club up through this new development, up along this existing cart path and bringing you back out further up Ruffner Road. That would, allow the people in the new development to get around and others as well.
Mhm.
Is that just a thought, or is that something you want to ask Complete Streets to ask the planning board to at least think about, or?
Well, I'd ask if you want me to pose that as a recommendation for the committee to consider, sure. I think it's three parts. That's priority one. And then there would be secondary priorities to consider to connect the new neighborhood into that purple line. And
Okay,
then
good. So we want to keep this easement off of East Country Club as number one, and then some secondary priorities, which would be a path here getting in, and then maybe at the other end, a connection to Ruffner or to Row Road at the other end of the housing development. That's
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I did see that Ben joined us.
Yes, Ben, how are you? Thank you for joining us.
Another thing that we might want to consider in our recommendation, I know it's a 3-way, which we were looking for a 4-way, but then people who came and were talking about this project said that there's a stop sign on Ruffner Road that nobody listens. Well, not nobody, but it gets missed because I'm not 100% sure that it would be warranted. I don't know. I don't live on that road, but they were thinking as one of the things they could do is some traffic calming in this corridor, and then a thought was that maybe they could do a mini roundabout right there.
If the neighbors are supportive, I mean, I think both Ben and Andrew have been looking for a site in town. I know there's people on Ruffner Road have actually asked for the stop signs like at Mountain View and further along because they feel like stop signs do control speed to the extent that people at least have to slow down and do a California stop once they go by stop signs. But if Andrew and Ben take a look at that intersection and we have an example of a traffic calming device that's been used in Seattle or some other place, and they'd like to give it a try here, that's strike me as a possibility, especially where you have, if you poll the neighbors to see what their reaction was, if you had neighbors behind it saying anything that would slow speeders on Ruffner Road, we'd like to take a look at. That's a thought.
Ideally that, it would be at Mountain View, but if Mountain View's geometry doesn't work, since the developer's coming in with a new driveway, I guess you could consider a mini roundabout at the driveway, but it would require a bigger engineering study about then taking out the stop sign and making, Mountain View would be a stop sign, I would assume, on Mountain View, but the mini roundabout would then be in front of the new driveway. It would essentially be shifting that idea over if the geometry.
Either that might work better because of the crest in the road.
Well, it doesn't change existing people's property lines either, even though you've got the right of way. We know it's difficult when you start talking about taking their front lawn, even though it is right of way. So it might, again, it would require engineering review, but maybe the roundabout at the driveway would make sense.
And the developer could be part of the cost of the development, right? We wouldn't have to.
Well, absolutely.
We're talking about all developer mitigation for a 24-unit subdivision, not town. This is what we would be asking a developer to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
To mitigate some of the impacts that they have. Yeah, so we could say that we also support traffic calming measures. Consider a mini roundabout at New Street Connection or Mountain View.
Yes.
The New Street Connection might work better though. I'm not sure.
Will the tree council ask them to replant some trees somewhere else in the golf course?
Yeah, they'll be required to plant trees and, you know, in the right of way that they're creating. And then the CAC, the tree council is actually doing a site visit maybe next week. But the CAC was also looking at them offsetting if they're going to be taking this open space as maybe projecting some open space somewhere else on the golf course. So they're looking at that kind of thing right now.
Because they already cut down a bunch of trees in the middle of the golf course.
Yeah, they apparently have an arborist that comes and looks at their trees every couple years and gives them recommendations. But I did hear from people that they took a couple of big trees down recently. And I do believe they had some explanation for that, but I can't remember what it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
Tree planting could also be used to help buffer any new potential public pathway. So if there is a concern, you know, about these running along the existing greens or other things,
Yeah.
or other things, that's one place you can start putting in trees that over time will start to, you know, they'll grow in and create a physical separation, natural separation.
Put along the path. Yeah, maybe if there's some areas even on Ruffner Road, because street trees are traffic calming, so they could look at offsetting their clearing and creating traffic calming by putting along trees along the new paths and maybe along some of the existing roads if they need them.
Yeah, they could almost make a tree planting program opportunity for residents. If they're interested, they're willing to purchase the tree or put in or whatever the case might be.
Okay. Any
Yeah.
further comments or thoughts from anyone on the Mohawk Golf Club housing development proposal? Okay. Well, let's move on to 2771 Balltown Road.
Maybe this one. This one is kind of isolated on Balltown Road a little bit. Still very preliminary again, very preliminary. Hasn't really had a hard look at the zoning board yet, but
Where is this project, Laura?
you know
First,
what? Yeah, sorry, I
is this
shouldn't have
the
taken my GIS
Is
down.
this the old vet building that just got
Yes,
redone?
it's the old vet building.
That's what I thought. Okay. That's new apartments now, right? It's a couple apartments in the front there.
Yeah, so the proposal is to put 2 more buildings and additional 12 apartments. I'm just gonna scroll up because this really does seem to need a location map. This comes up all the time. Way up here, I've got it highlighted. It's almost better to look at it here. You can look at the site plans that you have on your computer. I mean, essentially, I don't know if it'll get approved or not, but the idea is that there'd be more multifamily apartment units here. And so right now it's completely isolated on Balltown Road. And so anybody that you add there don't really have anywhere to walk because I do see people walking on Balltown Road every once in a while, and I just worry about them a lot because it's just a hard place to walk. So one thing that I was noticing, and I don't know if we looked at this before, but if you guys see this parcel right here, it has like a pond in it.
Mhm.
This is owned by the town of Niskayuna. It's a stormwater pond.
Hmm.
And so I was thinking if this project does go through and they put more units here, I think it would be cool if you could put some kind of a walking path so that these units could get onto the town property and then be able to walk, the neighborhood loop.
Is it fenced off at all? Or is it would it be a liability if it's a detention pond?
It is fenced off. We'd have to change the fence.
Okay.
There's the fence right there. There, you can kind of see the fence right there.
Okay.
Yeah, but
I agree with you, Laura. The being as isolated as it is, I think that would be the best connection to give people the ability to get off property.
because
Yeah.
eventually, I don't know if you remember
Yeah.
the Complete Street. I'm pretty sure Complete Streets made this happen. Complete Streets made this right here. There's a paved crushed gravel. The lines are a little bit off, so don't worry about it. But this is essentially an 8 or 10-foot wide path that goes here. And we required the developer to give us a crossing under the lines so that eventually if this ever got developed or whatever, we'd be able to make a path from here all the way over to the senior center, which is right here. And actually so theoretically, if you would connect these guys to here and then you connect this eventually to the, to the senior center, you're essentially giving all these people almost, I'm sorry, I'm moving my screen around a lot, but I mean, like at least access, you could basically walk from your house to Aqueduct Road.
Yeah, it's senior center / town park and pool. I mean, there's a lot going on.
There's a pool and there's these fields. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely.
So
I think it
did
makes
you-
total
I mean,
sense to
that
make
was my thoughts. I didn't know what you guys' thoughts were, but I wanted to show you how I thought we could make a connection. And then if you wanted to recommend it, we could. Or if you had other ideas, we could do something else too. It's a much smaller type of thing. I just
Mhm.
feel like apartment units sometimes get underserved in their connectivity, especially in the northern part of Niskayuna.
How would you do it? Would you move the fence sort of over a little bit, and then does the pond have to be fenced in for liability reasons?
It does. I would say, yeah, you'd have to have the developer pay to move the fence probably like 5-10 feet over.
Okay,
Like maybe just put the fence along the edge of this road, and then build the path on the inside of the fence.
It would be even for development that's smaller like this, it'd be a drop in the bucket for them to move a fence line. That's not a big deal. I think it's a great idea, Laura. I would definitely suggest the committee moving forward as a recommendation.
So this just gets them onto the road here, right? And then they'd have to kind of walk around a little bit to get access to the swimming pool and the community center.
Yeah. The swimming pool and the community center access isn't built yet. But even just being able to walk around that loop, like
Yeah, that's a big
along with
deal.
what you said about obesity and everything, like otherwise all you can do is just walk around your apartment complex, which is
Yeah.
tiny, and you're not going to be walking. I mean, I just wouldn't recommend them walking up and down Balltown Road. It would be not a good idea.
Yeah, people move to apartments and they have small kids. It's nice to be able to have a loop where you don't have Balltown Road traffic on it and you can get out and, you can get access to the Schwaber Drive and this loop right here and
Yeah, and you
eventually
shouldn't
town
have to.
pool. So,
You shouldn't have to own a $600,000 home to be able to walk around a block.
yes.
Right,
Yep.
exactly. It gives you a neighborhood to walk around at the very least, like you lived in the neighborhood there. And then, being forward thinking the way we're supposed to be, hopefully eventually it will connect up with the town park, pool and senior center, which is, a reasonable walk and a very easy ride if that connection's made somewhere in the future.
Okay, so I'll put that we are recommending that connection. And, just for the future to put it in the planning board's brain, I'll also mention that, that could potentially tie across that vacant land to the senior center, pool and fields eventually.
will they ever put a sidewalk on Balltown in that area, or
Mm,
is that ever in the plan? Or
I don't know. I mean, it would certainly benefit all the residential homes.
there's so many homes there? Yeah.
Although the town does have, I believe, or we talked about asking Dave Bucco for an easement on the railroad track that goes
We
from
do.
the town pool down to Aqueduct Road to the turnaround there. So, I mean, if we actually had, it's a little bit roundabout, but you could have a back way where you could really get from Providence Avenue down to Balltown and Aqueduct Road intersection internally here using bike paths on the inside as opposed to, using a bike path on Balltown Road. Although I do agree that it's a state road that, it should be something, maybe it's an ask to, the state DOT officials to at least put that on the radar screen. And, but I mean, you see the railroad, that kind of pink, is that it right there?
Yeah, that's the
that-
railroad easement that we talk about.
So if you
Even-
get over there, then, you could use the railroad easement to get down without having to go on Balltown Road. And so it would be expensive to build a side path on Balltown Road because it's steep and a lot of traffic. This would be a back way, I guess.
Given River's Ledge down here and that it's built out and a lot of residents are coming in there, I think that we may start hearing more and more discussions about trying to make that pink connection work in the future. We've got to, I don't even know how many apartments are down there, Laura. There are a lot of them. I mean, there's a decent population down there now that wasn't there 2 years ago. Oh, Laura, you're muted.
160, happily talking away.
106.
Yeah, actually, I mean, it almost brings up a thought, which is, should Complete Streets really look at this whole area down here and just ask ourselves, hey, how would we tie this together so that we'd be, well, the planning board would have an idea, or the town board, or developers that, instead of doing, one here, that we'd have a kind of a conceptual plan that maybe it's already on our Complete Streets map, or maybe we need to update our Complete Streets map. So our input on how we'd like to see bike and path connections would already, be in place in some sense. And so we're not sneaking up on developers at the last minute, that we've got a plan, and, we'd show it. Maybe the planning board would look at it, and we'd have something. We might even have something that could go into the comp plan.
Yeah, I was gonna say we definitely should put this into the comprehensive plan. It might be in there already. And I remember that you and Jim were working a little bit on updating the transportation chapter, but you should send me your notes. And I do feel like we have at least, it may not be a physical easement sign, but we do have a plat showing an easement to the town there. So the town does have some, at least more than just a passing interest or right to the road, to the railroad bed, and some of this forest is really beautiful, and it would be very cool because speaking of these guys being isolated, these guys are also kind of isolated. So there's already a button or a sensing. It's actually, I think they switched it to a button. There's already a crossing right here, so they could just cross the road right there, and they could go down the bike path forever, but they could also go up the road over to here, which would be
Laura,
cool.
just real quick, is the commercial stuff going to happen at River's Ledge? It was discussed eventually.
They're still working on it. It's called phase 2, and they put their building out to bid, which they'd been working on the planning board with, and it was 2 times as expensive as they had estimated. And so they're having to scale it back.
Because there is an economic development tie to that eventually too. If that comes in down there, if you can tie the trail into that, you can talk about how people don't have to drive to whatever ends up down on the riverfront there in terms of commercial businesses. So it helps the argument that it's not only, well, it doesn't matter. It's 160 apartments, probably more people, but then you also have the commercial there as well in the future. So there's a potential economic tie in there depending on what goes in.
Yeah, because they were at
All
one
that
point talking
sell
about a
the idea.
restaurant. Mhm.
Yeah, all that. Oh, if it's a restaurant, certainly all that helps sell the idea of making that connection on that purple line.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, that's a great one. I know Bill brings it up. I really like that one a lot because I could turn the contours on because it was an old railroad bed. This is a big hill, but it takes the hill down, and I think it's just, it flattens it out.
Yeah.
You see how the contours, you can see where the old railroad bed was, and it follows the hill all the way up. And so it would be a nice, easy, gradual way to get people to the top of the hill.
Is it all overgrown, or can you walk on it right now?
It is, you can see where the bed is, but it's overgrown.
Mhm.
My other thought, Laura, just back to the apartment here in terms of tying in other houses on Balltown, a lot of them are right adjacent to that apartment proposal. So if they were to develop it to the north end of the site, or even had a little stub that came out, if those neighbors ever did want to tie in, because they can't tie in necessarily directly because there are new parcels, new houses coming in, if they were willing to put something into the back end of their lots, and they're pretty deep lots, they could conceivably talk about, kind of doing something themselves and tying into what the town would put in through this development, which keeps them off Balltown Road as well.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's a future discussion, but it would be an easy tie-in if they wanted to do it.
Yeah, to the northern home.
Right. On that side of Balltown. Yeah. It would capture some of the residents up there.
Yeah, they're all essentially trapped for walking as well. They pretty much have to drive their car if they want to walk somewhere. Yeah, that's a good idea. I put that one
So
too.
at least not preclude the option for that to happen,
Mhm.
you know, if we do put something in.
Okay. Okay. That kind of quadrant up there, I mean, is there a picture of that could be sent to Complete Streets folks to look at, or not? Just like that one image you had there, Laura. I don't know how hard it is to do that. I'm just, or you know, as Complete Streets committee members are looking at it, I mean, somebody else might have another idea on something that.
I can send you guys a map. Yeah, that has those lines
Yeah,
on it.
that kind of corner up there that maybe that'd be great to have.
Oops.
Okay. Anything further on 2771 Balltown? Okay. Ben, are you out there? Forgive me for not announcing your name. I have an old agenda right here that didn't have Ben O'Shea on it, so I should have read you off when we did the roll call. So anyway, if you're here. Okay, let's move on to grant updates. Crosswalk at St. Joseph's and River Road.
Oh wait, Bill, I think you skipped the calendar.
Oh, the calendar, yeah. So the calendar, I probably did the calendar. Or did I? I thought.
Oh yeah, I put it in here. Yeah.
Yeah,
So I
it's-
put in our last Friday of the month, but I have heard from a couple members that this time is hard, and because the school switched, I still think it's actually also hard for our school representative too. So I was wondering if you guys wanted to change the meeting or consider changing the meeting time again.
I mean, I'm open to considering a time change, but I have a pretty flexible schedule, so that's just me.
When did we meet formally before I went to 2:30? Were we like?
Yeah, it was like 8:30 or 9 in the morning.
Was it Fridays or was it a different day? Or
It was Friday. It's always been Fridays. You have always been the last Friday of the month,
Yeah.
except for November and December, which we
But-
combined just because you can't. The last Fridays in November and December just never work.
But is that a problem for the school folks, Ben and Elise? 8:30 or 9 on Friday mornings? I mean, I could certainly do it.
I wouldn't be able to make it. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. So that's important then, though. Well, then maybe we just keep it. What do you guys think? It's hard, super hard for Dart, but he's not going to be on Complete Streets next month, so. Should we just keep it at 2:30 then?
Unless somebody's got another time that looks like it works for the members. I mean, it seems like 2:30 is kind of the
Okay, let's just keep it at
the
2:30
early. I
then.
mean, you have a hard stop at 4, so we kind of have a short
Yeah.
window there, 2:30 to 4, and so
We get a lot done in 2:30 to 4, though. I think it's okay to have a hard stop sometimes.
okay. All right, and the calendar last Friday. I hope people got a chance to look at it. It's really kind of what we've been doing. So thank you for putting the calendar together and sending it out. And while we're talking the calendar, obviously the town board reappoints members to this committee. The committee goes year to year. So if you, I'm assuming that Laura will just pass along to town board our current roster unless there's anybody here that's just bored to tears, can't listen to another Chapman joke, and wants to be spared in 2023. So
Yeah,
I'm
no, Bill,
assuming
I'll send an email. I always send an email to everyone
Yeah.
and just confirm that they want to continue. Although
Okay.
sometimes I write my email because I don't always get responses. Like, let me know if you don't want to continue. You're always welcome to be like, I do want to continue, but I do notice that sometimes I just write it. So tell me if you don't want to continue is what I usually say.
Okay, crosswalk at St. Joseph's and River Road, an update on that.
Oh yeah, so I wanted to update the developer or the person that won the bid. They have been, at least the last time I checked, the sidewalks on the north side of Union Street were completed. I believe both of the flashing lights are in on Union Street. I'm not 100% sure about the sidewalks on the south side. But with the freeze and thaw that's happening, they did decide, and it was totally their choice, they could do it either way, to do the St. Joseph's crossing in the spring. So they just, as soon as they decided they were going to do the St. Joseph crossing in the spring, it was like 50 degrees for the next week and a half. And I was like, I'm pretty sure you could have gotten this in, but it's all right. So they're going to do that one in the spring.
So St. Joseph's goes in the spring also.
So Union Street will be done, except for potentially asphalt, but St. Joseph, they're going to do in the spring.
Okay.
They just,
It would have been nice if they had it
Like,
done,
they
because
made
then
the
we could have
call
used it
when it
for our,
you know how
Or-
we had a couple really cold days? They made the call on those really cold days and they pulled it and put it on their spring schedule, which we said was okay. And then we had a week and a half of like 50-degree weather, but they probably needed more time to do that anyway. It's okay.
okay. And the crosswalk on Upper Union and it's both lights. I mean, they're not doing the median, right? In other words, we were disappointed that there was one aspect of the original plan that they're not doing. In other words, there's no island that you cross over to get to, and then you go the other way. In other words, it's a push button crosswalk and you go all the way across.
Push button crosswalk.
And that's going to help the folks in the church and St. Catherine School also. I mean, that's the purpose of that crosswalk right there. It's
Yeah, so they're
school.
actually moving a crosswalk that had some safety issues. They'll remove that crosswalk, put this crosswalk in, which I think they did that already too.
Okay.
The school zone doesn't change, so the blinky lights on the school zone are sort of on the outside, and then this crosswalk will be a push button crosswalk, and right between the Brookside and St. Catherine.
Okay. Any further question for Laura on the crosswalks before we move on from anyone on the committee?
Just good to see more stuff getting implemented.
Yes.
Yeah, they did really want to put it in this year because then they wouldn't have to mobilize again next year, and we don't pay them to mobilize. But
I mean, if they want to do it, let's not stand in the way. I mean, if it's too
no,
late.
they put it into their spring schedule already.
Okay. The Knott Street sidewalk, is that part of the spring or is that on a separate issue too? Or
No, Knott Street sidewalk we did not have the funding for.
no? Okay. Okay. I'm sorry. Well, I don't want to get
But-
us off on-
Like we had said this before, it's not really a losing situation because we have the full engineered drawings that work to spec and put out to bid. So all we have to do is if a Climate Smart grant comes around or and we have reasonably new cost estimates because I got at least 3 bids on that sidewalk. So we can use the bids we got on the sidewalk and the engineering plans to go after the money. Like essentially there's no work left to do except submit all of that stuff for grant funding.
Okay.
So just real quick. So Laura, you and Bill heard this when we were at the school, but I had heard that the state and the MPOs both have to provide a percentage of their annual funding for complete streets related projects. So sorry, office dog shaking back there. So, if you already have them engineered, the IIJA funding, the fact that they have to provide all this money for complete streets should be very helpful in terms of getting some of these things done. We'll just have to keep our eye out for what funding sources come from where and how we might be able to apply for them.
Yeah, so I mean it is as shovel ready as it could possibly be.
Okay. Okay. Let's move on to Plum Street sidewalk project. Is there an update on that?
I think I gave you guys this update already actually, but we the town board was working on the budget and we had set aside the $50,000 for Plum this year, but we ended up having to use that to pay for just the two projects, the two complete street projects that we bid. They were very expensive. And then, but next year we set aside more for the Plum Street. So we're hoping to either rebid or, figure out a way. And that was fully funded in the budget for next year.
Okay. This is
To the
the
town board
sidewalk
set.
that runs along the home on Van Antwerp that gets us to the end of that homeowner property. Does this project also include the sidewalk that's going to go across the school district property and tie onto the sidewalk next to the parking area in Hillside, or is that on the school district to do that piece?
That's on the school district, but that's one of the things that was so exciting about that meeting, because the school district, I think I saw them care a lot that the town was putting in that sidewalk. And that was one of the things that they felt like they would be able to fund even within their operating budget, because that would be a pretty critical connection to them.
Okay.
Yeah. So just to give you a sense, it took me a second to pull it up, but the Knott Street and Baker, the Knott Street sidewalk, just our side of it, the bids came in at $93,000 to $163,000 for that guy. The bids for the Plum Street sidewalk were between $50,000 and $80,000, and that was for it to be asphalt with no curb. But what we want to do is hold it till next year and make it a curbed concrete sidewalk.
Do you usually go with the low bid on that, or?
You
is
have
it-
to, yeah.
Hopefully the costs will come down next year. They seem to be starting to come down.
That would be great, because
Yeah.
we had to carve a lot out of every single one of our projects. Everything. It was just so expensive.
Yeah, it is.
I would say to the Complete Streets Committee also, when we were discussing Hillside, that the school board members there and the new superintendent did seem amenable to repairs on the asphalt pathway behind Hillside School that took students up to the easement that would bring you up to Van Antwerp Road. That they at least listened to our discussion on that, saw the merits of having that connection. So it's kind of dangerous for students to have to walk down Van Antwerp and then walk on Plum and then walk around that loop, because there's a lot of traffic that exits Hillside onto Plum Street and a lot of activity on Nicholas. And so they seem to be open to maintaining the easement and having repairs to the asphalt pathway in the back of Hillside that would allow students to use that. I mean, they may still, lock the gate at 3 or whatever when school is not in session, but at least it would be open for school students to access it. So I thought that was good. They seem to be up for listening to that. Okay. Anything further on Plum? Okay. How about Spring Complete Streets Demonstration Project? I think we kind of we've had two ideas. One is still the bike paths on Lexington Parkway for a couple blocks. And then also Andrew Millspaw and Ben O'Shea have taken a look, I think, at Regent and Morrow, is that right? A Regent and Baker, is it possible for a
Yeah.
Test.
Yep.
roundabout?
Yeah. I guess we haven't. I guess the last update was putting something together to get in front of the town board to get, to get to the next step. I haven't had much time to put into that at this point.
Okay, well, we still have some time. Okay. Any further then on the demonstration project? Can we leave that to the next item, or?
Or do we have budget? Do we have budget to do some things next year for paint and tape and whatever we need?
It's not like an extensive budget, but I think we'd have enough to do the paint and the things that we talked about doing before.
Did Complete Streets get, I don't know, any additional budget money, like $5,000 just to do odds and ends at Complete Streets
Yes.
Committee? Some
So
tape, paint?
I actually want to circle back, because potentially, I know sometimes you guys get frustrated, but I wanted to actually explain to you that when we put these projects out to bid, we had, I think, a funding matrix, and even the ones that are being built, so the Upper Union Street sidewalk and the St. Joseph's, are quite a bit beyond the grant money that the town had, and the town is putting in the extra.
Good,
So
good, good.
yeah, so I know it's like, oh, we had the budget for Plum, but we ended up not only having to use the budget for Plum, but some additional funding elsewhere within the town in
Yeah,
order
we
to
need to
make
hear that,
all of
Laura,
these
complete
projects happen.
streets, because we
Yeah,
feel like the
right.
town board is putting money.
No, they put a
behind
decent
projects.
amount of money, of town money, into these two projects just to make the two projects go. One that happened this fall, one that's going to happen in the spring. And then they had to set aside essentially double the amount of money that they had set aside last year in order to be able to do Plum next year.
It warms my heart. I feel like the
Yeah.
town board is behind what we're talking about. If they're willing to spend money on
money.
it, then they're serious. And so
Yeah.
that should warm the heart of everyone on.
But no,
Complete
we didn't get an extra 5,000 miscellaneous, but we got about an extra 50,000 on the Plum side.
Okay, good, good, good. So when you run into town board members,
Tell them thank you.
tell them thank you, wherever you see them, in the grocery store or whatever. So, okay, thank you. Moving on to Safe Streets and Roads for All. Preparation for 2023. The minimum grant on Safe Streets and Roads, as I understand, is $5 million. And I do need to get the plan. I mean, it could be that Sandy Misowitz and the other folks at CDTC sent it to me, and I'll have to look on my emails to see if it's not there. If not, I want to ask them if they would be kind enough to send the safety action plan that they have for us to take a look at it. I mean, I do feel like we can take them at their word if they feel like it meets the requirements, the federal requirements for a community to have a safety action plan in place, and that we can now move to applying for money for substantive infrastructure projects. But if the county or the town board says, okay, we're going to go after the 5 mil, and even if we said, gee, it's $1 million match, there's still some other pockets that we might say to Metroplex, hey, the local match has got to be $1 million. Would you be willing to put in 250,000? Or we might go to our Assemblyman Phil Steck and say, we have to do $1 million match. Would you be willing to help us for 250,000? Or, some other possibilities. Then our associate, Mr. Kesley in Glenville, he's been very good at not only getting the money, but getting additional money to do the match. And I guess if our town supervisor, to her credit, is saying we're going to be talking to some engineering firms about preparing a grant. We've learned that the chief of police, Laura, Matt Yetto, other people are so busy with their regular work that it's not like they have time to set aside to write grants. The town board is saying we're going to retain some outside engineering firms to help prepare this grant, that if they reach out to Complete Streets to say, you could provide us some help by prioritizing some projects. I mean, what do we want to do? And I, kind of sent around the Excel spreadsheet where I've identified some projects. And the next thing I think we need to do that the supervisor asked is, well, could you attach some dollar figures to these? And so I've raised the possibility of either sitting down with Clark Henry or maybe sitting down with Jim Levy and his wife to see, if we use some of the standard cost estimators for asphalt pathways or sidewalks or other things to do some preliminary estimates, that we get those. And then we as a committee look at this and say, if the town board said, okay, Complete Streets, 5 million on the table, what would you recommend that we do? Now, obviously, county legislators and town board members will have their own ideas, but maybe the first cut, we ought to be able to do that ourselves. And so I'd like to attach some dollar figures to these. And then I think, maybe if we can ever get together in person or whatever, that we try to say, these are some priorities. And, in my own list, certainly, forgive me. I mean, we've talked about Birchwood Lane. Would that be a sidewalk on both sides or one side? Cornelius Avenue, would it be an asphalt side path on one side or a concrete sidewalk on the other side from Story down to the school? Are there other improvements at Van Antwerp? The road, the asphalt connections through River Road Park to get to Iroquois Middle School, crosswalks at Craig School. I mean, I guess I'm just saying we need to finish our homework. We've got these ideas, and rather than them asking us, I think we should come up with some ideas so that when we talk about if M&J Engineering or Barton LaJudas, whoever it is, says to the supervisor, okay, what are the projects you want to do? And the supervisor turns to this committee and says, okay, I'm willing to go after some money and willing to commit $1 million of town money to be the 20% match for $5 million of federal money. What are the projects we want to do? And certainly Rosendale Road is a big one, county road, but I think our county legislators, we want to get them involved too. As a matter of fact, if it's a $5 million project, it could be the county would put in $250,000, so we can try to put the pieces together to get the $1 million match, and we focus on the priority projects that we think we want to get done. And it's not like a massive Christmas card wish list, but it's close to that. And so I think we should do that. And so I guess I'm just wondering if people have some thoughts on, well, my recommendation is we get some cost figures attached to these, and then we sit down as a committee to say, well, what would we recommend to the town board to ask Barton LaJudas or whatever engineering firm they have do this to work on to try to come up with a grant proposal. And we don't want to be scurrying around 10 days before September 23rd, 2023. We need to get it done early, get it in front of the town board so that the school board can offer their thoughts. Our county legislators can offer their thoughts, county highway department, our town board members, get everybody on board, get the town board to approve it and send it off to Washington to try to get some of this money. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, just to follow up, Bill, I believe actually that Sandy from CDTC came and met with the supervisor, and they were, sort of further trying to figure out how to do the grant next year. So I agree with you. I think it would be very good to get some at least ballpark numbers on a couple of our very high priorities and be able to get that to the supervisor and potentially some of our grant writing engineers. Just so that they can start thinking about it. I mean, some of the obvious ones also, like, which would make the grant application, bulkier, is to add in Knott Street and such things, that we already have the engineering done on. Those are quick adds. So maybe they just rise to the top because we have the engineering done on them. But getting some of those numbers, and maybe it could just be as simple as 1 or 2 people from the committee volunteering. I am getting a master's planning student intern in January, like just 1 or 2 members of the committee, like sitting down, picking out a couple, and then, given the intern, letting them run with, cost estimates, and then we as a committee can check on them and make sure we agree with priorities and stuff like that. I think that might work.
So for most of what we do, the NISDOT cost estimator that I've talked about before is the thing to use. That's what most MPOs and everyone uses for these high-level preliminary cost estimates. I'm actually working with the MPOs and DOT to update that. They're hoping to put a lot more information in there about cost of bollards and other things, so everyone's got the same cost to use. But that would be what I would suggest we use. And at this point, it's the one we've had out there. I don't think they've updated it for like 2 years.
That was the one I was going to show my intern.
Yeah, that would be the way to go for preliminary stuff. And then if we think we need to go do a deeper dive, you'd have to talk to some of the on-call engineers or whatever. But that would be the first step, I think.
Well, assuming we had a cost estimate for everything on our Excel spreadsheet and we still have the Knott Street and some other things, then the next question is really, I mean, my thought has been that Safe Routes to Schools is a good place to start because it's endorsed by the federal funding. They want to see that. And you don't necessarily have to rely on traffic deaths or traffic accidents. I mean, we have pictures of the roads that our schools generally don't have safe access way to them. And so, that's where we're starting and that's what we want to do. And I guess I just like to get input or have the committee, look at this and say, these are our recommendations. I mean, we've got 20 items on the list. what are our top 10 and the ones we want to put forward. And we have some others there so that if somebody doesn't like these 10 or they want to look at the bigger list, they're welcome to do it, but that we've got more than enough projects to account for $6 million in spending. And here they are. And, just to do that next step, which is to get the cost figures and then prioritize these and share the priority list with the town board. I mean, we'd share the whole list, but these would be, our ranking for the top 10 and then, further on. And so that they're not empty-handed when they start talking to engineering firms about what they want to do, that we've primed the supervisor's office with these projects. And so when our supervisor talks to an engineering firm or CDTC or the county or whoever, that at least our input has been provided to them, and they've got that as a start point. So,
Bill?
yes.
I
Catherine.
think the report that you were referring to, the MPO report, that's the local road safety action plan, right? 2019? Because that's,
Yes.
that's right on the website. So it's really not difficult to get a hold of.
Okay. It's called the Local Road Safety Action Plan.
Yeah, it's in 2019. So I think all the members could probably access it right off their website. It's pretty
Okay.
easy.
I
And you
actually,
just go to CDTC, right? First.
Right. The other thing, if you look at their report, so much of it is based on, crash data. So they're looking at fatalities, they're looking at, serious injuries and the main causes for those. And then they come up with, strategies to mitigate that. And of course, they not only talk about engineering, but they talk about education and enforcement. So enforcement's a big part of this. So it probably would be worth having, our local police department involved in this effort, in this strategy. So it's not just engineering efforts that we're talking about here. We have to also look at some of our, local crash data as well.
Okay.
I don't think there's a lot out there, but we should probably look at that.
Kathy, I put the link in
Would
the,
that be a subcommittee or someone to meet with the police chief? I mean, he obviously has been at the meeting. I know that he's supportive of the CDTC grant, but if we need crash data or whatever data we need, it would be, we need to find out what would best support our application and what data they've got. And I think the federal grant people that review it, the more they've got in terms of a community survey or our local data and the CDTC product and pictures of roads to schools. I mean, it's kind of we've made a full effort to look at areas that they've asked us to look for and been responsive to each one of those. So I think that's a good idea.
so Bill, I put the link in the chat if anyone wants to grab that. Regarding crash data, Laura, you and I talked with CDTC months ago. Did you get the data from Carrie? Do you know? I don't remember where that ever landed, but we can look back into that. I know we're almost out of time. But I know we had talked to CDTC and they didn't have any issue giving us the crash data. They're the ones that would pull it off the database. We don't have access to it publicly, but they'll give it to Laura with the request. They wouldn't give it to me because I don't work for the town.
Right.
So we can get the crash data. That's not a problem. And then the other thing, Bill, you were talking about needing $5 million in projects. I think if CDTC's safety action plan does work the way they say it's going to with Federal Highway, the priority there is for regional projects, multi-municipal projects. So if Schenectady County, for instance, can get together an idea for safe routes to school, sidewalks or whatever, I think that the idea might be to bundle a lot of this together and try and fund it that way. So we don't have to go about it trying to find $5 million ourselves for the town of Niskayuna. I think we may bundle these in packages with other municipalities to make it more competitive to get that money. So we don't need to come up with a fraction of that total. At least that's
the thought. Does that mean our town supervisor needs to be talking to the county manager? And
maybe. I think that's the way I heard that it was going, but yeah, we'd have to look into all that and figure it out. I think that needs to be part of the discussion since you kind of brought it up now. Where do we have to go and what makes sense for moving forward? But I don't think we have to go it on our own. As a matter of fact, I don't think we should. I think we're supposed to be focusing on this more multi-municipally and regionally.
Jim, Carrie did send us crash data for everything on Route 7 in our town, but
Oh,
not
Route
the
7.
Oakland Road, just Route 7. So we could, I could send it to you and Catherine if you want, and then we could see if we wanted to ask her for more. Do you want to do that?
Yeah, we can put in another ask, but yeah, it'll have to come from you at the town, Laura. She won't give it to me, but I'm sure she'll give you the crash data if you want it. But we should think about what we want so we can maybe not have to ask piecemeal. If we want a couple roads, we can ask all at once and they can pull it down. So
Yeah.
a couple things for us to think about.
Okay. Okay. Anybody else have,
You guys should watch the video that the grant application has on their website, because they go through a lot. Like if you're going to apply as several, as a group, or if you're going to apply individually, if you're even the crash data, like they say, don't just look at your crash data only, but get like hospital information, because a lot of people don't file a police report, but they'll go to the emergency room. There's a lot of little information, little tips and tricks like that. I had to watch the video like in chunks because it's like 2 hours long. So I kind of stopped and started and took notes. So, but there's a lot of information in there and what they're looking for specifically,
okay, we got-
and how they want you to tailor. And a lot of it is about diversity. They don't just want, sidewalks and stop signs, and they want to know how this is going to affect, a diverse neighborhood. So sidewalks and bus stops, so it's worth watching and worth taking notes to tailor the grant to meet those needs.
Okay. You reminded me of one other thing, Paulina, that Paulina is the member of Complete Streets who recommended that we do our priorities and we mail them to the county manager, the state, the town, and the school district, which has been very good in helping our committee focus on our priorities. And much to my chagrin, we never sent our 2022 letters out. And I do want to send them for 2023. So I'll try to find the 2022 ones and send those to you. And I've talked about a meeting with the state DOT. I think we have a lot of projects to talk about, but I do think it's a good idea. It really helps us focus on what are things we want. And certainly a priority would be to the county working with us on Safe Streets and Roads for All, that grant application. But, Grand Boulevard is going to be repaved with, bike lanes, but I do think it's helpful for us to just say, we want to have the meeting with the state, Mark Piscaldo, the state DOT representative for our district, and here's some things we want you to work on, a crosswalk at Hickory. And the county, here's some things that we want to work together on, which would be maybe Rosendale Road or getting the crosswalk.
Yeah, I do. Can you?
And then the town board, certainly the town board, the school
Okay, you have
district
to do
could
the-
be, we want to
I
work with
sorry, I
you
just got
on,
distracted. I didn't realize that we had. Oh,
a
I'm sorry.
plan for each school campus. So I'll send the 2022 letters, and I want to agree on what items we want for each of those, and then and try and get them out in January of 2023. But it would be with things we think are priorities for the next year. And I do want to thank Paulina Manzo for getting us started on that. Another one of her interventions that's had some good success for us. So anyway, I hope everybody has a great holiday. I'll entertain a
I
motion
just have
to.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Do we
Go
have
ahead.
another student that's going to be joining us? And if not, in the interim, until we have another student, can we have our meeting earlier on a Friday?
Well, Ben O'Shea works for the school district, so I'm not sure it's
Okay.
a jam for him to come earlier than 2:30, and it was a jam. Elise didn't make it today, so both of them. We had two members that
But Elise is leaving.
I hadn't heard that, but is Elise
I
leaving?
thought that was the announcement that she was not going to be the student representative anymore.
I hadn't learned that, so I don't.
Oh, okay.
It'd be news
all
to
right.
me if it was him.
I'm the
Sorry.
one that's leaving.
Oh, okay. I just couldn't even wrap my brain around that, Paulina. So
Well, she's still here as a consultant, and I told Paulina we're going to leave her on the email of all of our business, so she'll see what we're doing, and if she's got some thoughts, just like she's offered thoughts on stuff today, that she'll be out there to offer them to us. It's like Nancy Pelosi's not going away down in the House of Representatives; she'll still be there. That Paulina will still be here to help.
Okay,
us.
my misunderstanding. I'm sorry then. Yeah, of course,
Okay.
2:30 for
I'm gonna sign off.
Senator.
It's been a pleasure working with you all. I really appreciate all your feedback, and it's been nice getting to know you too.
Yeah.
Have a nice holiday.
Thank you for all your help.
Okay. Thank you all for coming today. We'll see you at our meeting in January, and hope you have good holidays. So thank you again.
Same to you.
All adjourned. Bye-bye.
Thank you.